When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
Warning, this podcast contains explicit language and spoilers. This is Behind the Iron Throne, your unofficial Game of Thrones cast.
Hello, welcome back to Game of Thrones podcast, Behind the Iron Throne, baby. Woo! This is episode 144, and I'm your host, Chris Gray. And I'm joined tonight by a very lovely and talented young lady. She's our media manager. She takes care of all of our content. She is amazing. And let me just say, she is the one true Queen of the North, writer of the Sacred Parchments and Mistress of Whispers. Wow, I am really off today, and it's because Andre, it's because we're recording on a Friday night. Holy dragon shit.
Who do we even think we are coming on Friday night?
I don't know. We have some serious psychological issues, but you know what's even funnier? My house is up for sale, and I had a showing today. I had three showings today. And literally, they just left. I zipped in here, took a shower, quickly got everything together, and here we are. I had to put all the studio together real quick. It was a real pain in the ass, and I got to put it all back, packed away, so that we can show the house again and do what we got to do. But it's good to have you here, and you had quite an interesting adventure as well. A matter of fact, you look a little lobsterish, which is one of my favorite foods, by the way.
I don't eat lobsters at all. I'm really sympathetic to their cause. You know, they only gain 1 pound every 7 years they're alive.
Holy horseshit.
Yeah, can you imagine being eaten just because you weigh a pound or 2 or 3?
Oh my God.
Terrible thing. You're a mean person. Yeah, I had a great time at the beach on Wednesday. It was 83 degrees or something to that effect here in California. And I know that doesn't seem like much, but in California and Central California, we really appreciate that type of weather, and it feels like 130-ish. So I knew I was done beforehand, and I stayed out in the weather probably another 2.5 extra hours in the ocean, just, riding the waves with my niece and them. Got visited by like 3 seals, and it's pup season, so that was fun. Yeah, I'm toast. I was literally born of salt and smoke.
Nice. You are Azor Ahai.
I am. Who would have thought the prophecy would have been that simple?
The princess that was promised is on B-Tit, Behind the Iron Throne. That's awesome.
That's true. Also, and John's not here, so I can have every single title I want.
You can.
Queen of the North, of the First Men, the Andals, the Rhoynar, protector of the idiots like Jon Snow, Stark lover.
We had a question. All right, we have so many people in the chat already. Now, I got to say real quick, I want to welcome everybody to the podcast. If you're listening to this after the fact, no big deal. But you can catch us live if you like our Facebook page, and it's really easy to find, facebook.com/Behind the Iron Throne. You can join us live. If you like our page, you'll get a notification whenever we go live, and you'll never miss it when we do special episodes like tonight. We're doing this for a couple reasons I'll explain in just a minute. But we had a really quick a couple of questions and comments here. Gisella's here. Yay! Gisella's been a great part of the podcast. She helps with all of the content managing that Andrea does. She does research for us. She's just been phenomenal, downloading all kinds of information from the Weirwood Network. Also, we have a question here from Aaron saying, out of curiosity, do you guys care more about the show or the books? Half and half, ? Well, Andrea, what do you care more about?
I can't say that I care about one or the other more. I mean, obviously, with the books, there's this huge mystery that's left open to interpretation, and you have to appreciate them for what they are. I love the books, and I swear by them. I mean, half of the content that I develop is based off of the books. But I appreciate the show. I appreciate what the show is doing for us, what it's given us as, viewers and fans who have been waiting for 20 years for this story to wrap up. I mean, there's I don't have anything bad to say about the show at all. I mean, but I have to appreciate them for what they are, completely separate entities. Both serve a purpose for me, and both of them can be used interchangeably, but it's really important to remember that they're telling two different stories at the same time.
Yeah, I agree, and I enjoy both equally and slightly differently. I love the books, especially the audiobooks. I always talk about, Roy Dotrice, and I love the way he reads it, even though when he does an orgasm for what's her name, it's a little bit, it's a little bit strange. Anywho, and when he does girls' voices, it's like, what the hell is going on here? But I enjoy the audiobooks because I don't have time to sit and read anymore like I used to. Not when I'm running a podcasting studio and a video studio. You just can't do it, and a full-time day job. But I love the HBO series for what it is. I love seeing it visually, and I also love reading the books or listening to the books because then I get to imagine it. And I get to kind of use the characters from the show, and I get to imagine them in my mind as I'm listening. So whenever I see the Hound, I see the show Hound. Well, for the most part. But I like them both equally. And on the show, we kind of do a little bit of both. Right now, we're focusing a little bit heavily. Well, other than tonight's episode, we're going to talk more about Rhaegar and Lyanna's love story. But we're gearing up towards the premiere of Season 7 for A Game of Thrones. So a lot of the content we're going to be talking about is going to be very television show or HBO show heavy. So just so everybody knows. We do like to go back and forth. And we do put on some tinfoil hats, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. I'm the queen of tinfoil. So, buckle up because it's going to get bumpy.
Oh, big shout out also to Lord Bags, a great follower who always comes and supports us here at the studio. Thank you so much. Absolutely love it. And do we have any more? I thought I just saw another comment pop up. Did I miss it? I don't want to miss any of the live comments because having you, our Thronies, be a part of the show has made this show so much better. Ever since we did the live stuff, I think it's made the show 10 times better. 10 times better. We always, when we started the studio, Trish, my CFO, we always wanted to have the audience participate, and we wanted it to be a community effort. So that's where we're at.
It does make a huge difference in terms of other podcasts that you listen to in comparison that, as, just a regular listener, it's a lot different, listening to some podcasts that you'll never have any feedback on versus a podcast that that you can go in and you can actually communicate with them and you can get their feedback on live right then and there. I mean, it adds this certain appeal that I miss out or that listeners miss out on with other podcasts that are just literally on air, nothing live, no interaction between the community and the people producing. So for me, that's what drew me into Behind the Iron Throne as a listener. First off, was the fact that you guys gave us the opportunity to participate, and now look where we are.
Roosevelt has a question here. Did you see that question during a rewatch?
I have not seen. For some reason, I'm not getting updates on my questions.
Yeah, I had to refresh and stay as Behind the Iron Throne. I couldn't do it as my personal. It says Roosevelt says during a well, nice to have a big shout out to Roosevelt. I've never seen you comment before, at least I can't remember. And the Night's King is his little icon, so that's awesome. One of my favorite. He's like the cousin of Darth Maul, and I'm a huge Star Wars Darth Maul guy. Anyway, during a rewatch, did the book mention the sword Viserion he pulled on Jorah when he got golden crowned?
Wait, what?
It says during a rewatch, did the book mention the sword Viserion's he pulled on Jorah when he got golden crowned?
During the rewatch, did the book mention the sword Viserion? You mean Viserys pulled on Jorah when he got...
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I have to go back to look at the crowning of Viserys, but I don't remember. I mean, I know that he pulled a sword on Jorah in the tent, but not in the tent when he was trying to take Daenerys' eggs. But he didn't pull one in the tent when Khal Drogo had crowned him. I mean, he pulled a sword he pulled a sword inside the tent at Daenerys, but not on Jorah. So I'm not quite sure. But Jorah didn't pull a sword on Viserys, though. No.
Because I'm wondering if we're trying to figure out if that's a Valyrian steel sword. Because I don't think Viserys had one.
No, the only sword that Viserys had was a sword that was given to him by Illyrio.
Yeah.
And Daenerys remarked on it quite a few times because she thought it was funny how he felt like he was stronger, more kingly with a sword that he's never used before on his side, you know?
Oh,
It was
Gisela
really
mentioned that too.
interesting.
Sorry, Gisela, I didn't see your comment till just now, so she mentioned that as well.
Hello, darling.
Aaron says, well, we all know the best tinfoil theory is that Benjen is Dario. No, the best tinfoil theory, here it comes, are you ready? Is that Ned Stark is still alive because he traded places with a faceless man that died for him, and he's also a faceless man himself, while also being Serial Pharrell, who in fact is
a vampire.
See? That is the ultimate tinfoil right there. It's the shit I keep hearing all the time. It's driving me crazy.
I only take credit for the first part of that tinfoil theory, which is that Ned was switched out with Jaqen H'ghar, and therefore that's why he loves Arya.
Yeah. So before we go into the Rhaegar-Lyanna love, finish the Rhaegar-Lyanna love story, it looks like our audience wants us to talk about what's our take on the Game of Thrones spin-offs. This comes from Govind, who says, lots of love from India. That's awesome. We're reaching India. That's really cool. Big star to you. Thank you so much. Before we talk about the spin-offs, I just want to say that they're talking about the whole crossover with Westworld. I loved Westworld. I thought it was a great show. I'm not going to spoil it, so you're okay. But they keep talking about this crossover that may happen. Like George has been saying, oh, we'd like to see a crossover. I don't know if that would be such a good thing. I kind of like them being separate, and I don't know if I want to see those together in any way, shape, or form. I
don't.
Yeah, you don't either, right? I mean,
No.
Why don't I keep them separate?
It didn't have any interest for me. Not that I don't think that it was a good show. I mean, I didn't finish watching Westworld, but that's probably why it doesn't have any interest for me. I didn't finish watching it. I didn't have enough interest to continue to watch it. So for them to mix any type of ASOIF and Westworld together, which is completely HBO related, would be weird for me. I don't know. I just can't.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that it's good to just leave the two shows separate. I mean, I don't want the two different universes crossing. I mean, some people, I don't know if anybody watches like all the DC stuff that's going on now on television, and they do the crossovers, and sometimes they're good, but a lot of times they've been really lame, and I don't want to see anything kind of lose traction. I think they're better off being separate. Now, for the spin-offs, now that's got me excited. I was reading the article from, what is it, windsofwinter.net, or winteriscoming.net, I think it is, and the article was really good, had a lot of good points in it, and I'm all for it. Now, Andrea, I'm going to ask you first. What spinoff would you love to see? If you could sit in that boardroom and say, okay, guys, this is what we're doing. Let's do it. What would you do?
Empire for the Dawn.
Okay. Oh, hey, Lilith. Yay, Lilith.
I think that in order to go forward, you have to go back. And if you're going to go back, you might as well go back all the way to the beginning. Unless they are able to cover that in the next 2 seasons that we're getting. I think that the Empire for the Dawn would probably be one of the most important things that we could watch to figure out, what the beginning actually was. I'd love to see a Shy. I would absolutely die to see a Shy. And so the only way that we're going to get that is if we go back to the Empire for the Dawn and we see those 5 ring forts and, the original Azor Ahai and Lightbringer and all of those things. That would be fantastic for me.
So the Age of Heroes.
Yeah, well, I think it's even further back than the Age of Heroes, considering that the First Men had been in Westeros 10,000 years, 2,000 years before the original Long Night. The Age of Heroes was 8,000 years ago.
See?
So
expert, I'm telling you, right here. Pick her brain.
I think that we're gonna get a lot of Robert's Rebellion in the next 2 seasons, to be quite honest with you, through flashbacks. I mean, it would be nice to see it, but I have a pretty good idea of what happened in Robert's Rebellion just from reading the books as it is. So I don't necessarily know if that's something that I specifically would want to see. I do think that Dunk and Egg would be a great way to do a spinoff, and if anything, I think that that's what we're going to get is definitely Dunk and Egg, possibly some Robert's Rebellion. More than likely, some Dance of Dragons. All of those
Dunk
things
and Egg would be awesome.
Dunk and Egg's going to be fantastic, and I think that that's definitely going to be one of those that's going to be up there in the running, if not for sure, certainly that we're going to get. It doesn't make any sense. I do think that the Doom would be great. To do anything about the rise and fall of Valyria would be fantastic.
I mean, we're talking about And of course, I'm wearing, as you see, I got my new shirt on.
I was just gonna say it's really nice.
Yeah, I really like it. It's his official Game of Thrones swag. I bought it from Amazon. I'll have a link in the description of this video so you can buy anything you want from Amazon. And guess what? You'll support us here at the studio. Just a small commercial. It's how we keep the lights on here. Anywho, it says Fire and Blood Targaryen. Has the dragon on the front. And it's why I got it, because I love House Targaryen. I also have a Lannister shirt, which I'm going to be wearing when John shows up for the podcast. Specifically just to piss him off. But I love House Targaryen. I don't care whether it's a black dragon. I don't care. Black fire. I don't care. Let's make it happen. Dragons are awesome. I would love
Red
to
or black,
see.
a dragon's a dragon.
Yeah, exactly. And I would love to see the Doom of Valyria. But my thing would be Aegon's conquest. That's what I would like to see. Him coming over with his 2 wives / sisters and just tearing Westeros up and saying, "Okay, I'm the boss now, bitches. This is my house."
Aegon's conquest would definitely be a good thing to revisit, only because I'd like to know personally the reason that he actually took interest in Westeros in the first place. I mean, it happened long before the conquest. He was visiting Old Town with his sister for many, many, many years as a boy coming up. And personally, I'm of a mind that believes that the reason why Aegon conquered Westeros was specifically because of the prophecy about the Song of Ice and Fire and the White Walkers coming back and the need to unite all of the houses versus keeping them all separate in their own little kingdoms. I mean, he wanted to end the infighting, and I think the reason why was to minimize bloodshed.
Nick was saying Robert's Rebellion would be cool or be awesome. And I think that would be awesome. I mean, I know that we've got some description in the show and in the books, and I just want to see it. I'd like to see I'm a huge Rhaegar fan. I would love to see, though, that hammer hit Rhaegar in the chest and knock all the rubies out. I don't know why. I just would love to see that. There was a really awesome fan art that I was trying to find to show in the show, but unfortunately, our production manager had a secret mission. Big hearts to Trin. She couldn't be here tonight because she's on a secret mission. She's a spy. I didn't know. Should I tell people that our co-host, our production manager, is a secret agent for the United States government?
You're totally getting in trouble for that.
I'm already on the watch list because I'm wearing a Targaryen shirt, and I have a studio full of equipment.
Well, that's very true, but also the fact that our public actually knows what she looks like.
Whoops, my bad. Moving right along.
You just compromised her mission.
Holy crap. Moving right along.
So is she rating them? Is that what's going on here?
No, she's doing something extremely important.
Oh, well.
I'm actually not really allowed to say.
Those things happen from time to time.
So, yep, that happens, but we love her, and we'll have her on Sunday.
Can you describe the picture for me really fast? I might be able to find it. Oh,
yes. I lost my train of thought. Gosh, I'm an idiot. So it's Robert Baratheon standing over Rhaegar. Robert's got the helm with the big antlers on it. And he's got his hammer, and he's swinging it down on Rhaegar, who has got his sword up and trying to block it, and he's wearing a helm with the 3-headed dragon on the top.
Got it right here for you, babe.
Wow, see that? Now that is dedication right there. Oh, there's Trin. She says, "I'm on a mission." See, she's on a mission. Govin says, "I'm excited to see spin-offs because we'd be able to see Lyanna Stark's story. I was totally lost after seeing her glimpse in season 6. Yeah, I would love to see her story as well, and I think we're going to get more details about that in the next. I think we're going to get more details about that in season 7. Maybe some more flashbacks. At least I'm hoping. I would like to see how.
I'm really hoping that we get the Tournament of Harrenhal in season 7. To be quite honest with you, that's to me the best possible scenario was that we get the Tournament of Harrenhal. Let's see here. I have you right here.
Trent says she would love to see Lady Stoneheart. I would. Would I like to see Lady Stoneheart? I think I want to say yes. All right, I'm going to put that picture up on the screen. Thank you so much.
Is it the one?
It's loading up right now. That's the one. I'm just waiting for it to load. Come on, load. Jeez, I'm crow. Why isn't it loading? Come on, load. Load. I'll get it to load, and I'll show everyone in the live stream in just a second. What other comments do we have? Lady Stoneheart. Yeah. What do you think? Would you like to see something? Would you like to see Lady Stoneheart?
No, not particularly. I'm
we
just
go.
hoping that in the books, John kills her. I hate her. Fuck her.
This is the picture I was talking about right here.
I don't care if she's coming for vengeance or not on everyone that wronged her and her family. She is not a fan of mine because whether she's Cat or Lady Stoneheart, she hated John, and fuck her for that.
Yeah, she was not very nice. But, I mean, I try to look at it from her perspective, and it still kind of sucks, because she should have, I mean, no love at all, really? It's a baby. Come on.
None.
And then after the kid got the pox, and she did all that praying to the seven, and she still couldn't love the kid. So. All
very good ideas for these spinoffs, guys. I just want to know what HBO is talking about. I mean, just so that we have a good idea of, what to expect. I know a lot of people are a little bit apprehensive about the spinoffs as well, with them being more than one or just one in general. I think even our own Yardley was a little apprehensive to hear that there was going to be more than one, because he from what he says, from what I can remember, was that typically spinoffs are based off of characters that we already know. And if they're going to prequels versus spin-offs, then that's something completely different. But if they're going to be building off the characters that we know, like Jon and Tyrion and Tywin and all of that, then it could be pretty interesting. But I would still want to know, what are we going to actually learn about them? I think it would be great to get to know Ned a little bit more. We only got one season with him, or 9 episodes totally with Ned. So I think getting to know Ned a little bit better would be interesting. Also, maybe something to do with Benjen, because we got so little of him in this whole entire 8 seasons that we're going to have. We got so little of Benjen. It would be nice to get to know a little bit of Ned and Benjen's backstory too, because there's clearly some divide between the two of them.
You know who doesn't get any love? Arthur Dayne. The Sword of the
Arthur
Morning.
Dayne. He would be the Kingswood Brotherhood. That would be a fucking fantastic freaking small little show that they did.
So amazing, yet there's hardly. I mean, there's stuff about him in the books and all, but I don't think there's enough. And I want to hear. I want to know more about the sword.
Oh, Dawn, yeah, absolutely. I was just talking to somebody earlier today about Darkstar. And I was saying that I think that Darkstar is going to be the one that actually ends up wielding Dawn, not Edric Dayne, or Ned Dayne for that matter. I think it's actually going to be Darkstar that wields Dawn, and he becomes the second Sword of the Evening versus Sword of the Morning.
Lilith
so that
says,
would be interesting.
Lilith says, "Can we have a spin-off for Get Your Drink Ready, Gendry?" Yeah.
Does Gendry have enough of a storyline for his own spinoff?
I think. Well, where's he been for a while? Maybe he went to the Isle of Faces. He rowed his boat the wrong freaking direction, got really fucking twisted around, and instead of landing back at Flea Bottom, he's like, "Hey, what's going on here?"
So what you're saying is he rowed his little boat up the Trident and ended up in the little lusty waters of the God's Eye, and It's been hanging out with the Children of the Forest and the Green Men this whole entire time.
Amazing.
Interesting that they embraced Robert's son.
What does that say?
So speaking of which part?
Row your boat. Yep. Now, please sing the Game of Thrones BGM for me.
What is BGM? Beginning,
maybe that's beginning. I don't know. For some reason, I thought it was something like bad.
I don't know what BGM means. You have to tell me. Now I'm curious.
Very curious. So there's a lot of great places we can go in terms of the spin-offs. We're just going to have to wait and see what HBO has planned. But with as much popularity behind this...
How do you sing the beginning music? You can hum it, definitely, for sure, but you can't sing it.
Yeah, how do you do that? Wiener, 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 wiener. It reminds me of the South Park episode.
So guys, last week we were talking about Lyanna and Rhaegar and their love story. And we wanted to make sure that we finished up on this because turns out Sunday we are going to have a guest panel join us. And we wanted to make sure that we had a clean slate ready for them, that we can just keep an organic roundtable conversation going. And I went back through and I re-listened to the podcast from last week just to kind of figure out where we left off. And I, while doing so, drew a picture. And I cannot draw, so don't judge me. But we were talking about the laughing werewood that was painted on Lyanna's shield, or the Knight of Laughing Tree shield.
This
and
is a good
I
picture,
told,
though. You did a good job. You showed me pre-show.
I told you guys that I think that it's actually the Black Gate. And so the Black Gate was described as being if somebody lived for 1,000 years and they, without dying, they would look like the face on this Black Gate with wrinkles upon wrinkles upon wrinkles. And when it opened, it stretched wide and it had wrinkles around either side. And this
let me zoom in. Okay, hold still. Let me zoom my magical camera in here. The power of the studio. Oh, thank you so much for the kind words. Gavin says, "You guys rock. Thank you for the podcast." You're most welcome. You did a great job on that. That's better than I could draw.
So this is what the laughing face on the Black Gate would look like, or the face on the Black Gate would look like when it's fully open. A laughing weirwood face. So there's your proof right then and there that the Knight of the Laughing Tree was actually influenced by the North. And moving forward, we can gather that is why it was painted on Lyanna's shield, and that is why Lyanna was the Knight of the Laughing Tree, not Howland Reed. And that's why Rhaegar picked her out, because that was a signal, a sign for him. So I just wanted to point out Blackgate. Boom. That's your laughing werewood face.
Now, before we go any further, I just want to mention, you had said that we're doing this show because we want to get caught up. We really wanted to get caught up on the second part of our love story that we talked about in the last episode because, like you mentioned, we have some very special guests coming on the next episode, and we only have, 10 weeks left until it's time for our show?
10 weeks. I'm so excited. 10 weeks until season 7 premieres, which gives us about 8 weeks until we head off to the Con of Thrones. So yeah, this is going to be really busy for us the next couple of weeks, guys. So
yeah, we got a lot of stuff planned. Holy crap. And we're going to have, so Trin went to the Ice and Fire Con just 2 weeks ago, I guess at this point it was. And she had met everybody there, did some video work, met a lot of great people, fellow podcasters, people that do video work, all kinds of wonderful people. And we're going to have KK back on the show. Lord Paramount, KK, she's part of the team that got Ice and Fire Con set up. And Tara, the Queen Regent, is going to be on the show as well. So we're going to have them on for the next episode, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. We're going to keep it open. We're going to keep it simple. And if you want to join us live, all you have to do, it's very simple, is join us here on the Facebook page. You can join us live and ask any question you like, talk about Ice and Fire Con, talk about anything you want. Join us live at Facebook.com/Behind the Iron Throne. We're going to be live on Sunday, this Sunday, at 7:30 Eastern Time. Come and join us. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Now, the only reason I may start late is I have showings to do on Sunday as well in an open house. But for the most part, I asked the realtor to not bug me because we're going to have our special guests on. So it's going to be a lot of fun. You can ask all your questions you want to do. So that's why we're doing this special show for Friday. All right. Love story.
Exactly.
Let's recap where we were, right? So we were going. We talked about the tournament at Harrenhal. We talked about why Rhaegar was there in the first place, why everything kind of got set up. We talked about what Howland Reed was doing there, or at least why we think he was there, and the significance of his character being in the same place. And also we talked about Lyanna as well, being there. So they met, I guess. Now, just real quick, was that their love at first sight moment when they met there at the tourney of Harrenhal, or do you think that there was something prior to that?
Oh, I think their love at first sight moment was when he went to go and find her after he was ordered by his father to bring him this mystery night, and he found a woman instead of a man in the woods trying to discard his equipment. I think that for him was a defining moment because, again, it tied back into that whole entire scroll that he had read when he was a child that convinced him that he needed to be a warrior. The weirwood, the face that was on that shield isn't a typical weirwood face. I mean, it's not something that you find anywhere else in all of Westeros. So, I mean, it's pretty easy to understand why the king would think that that person representing that laughing weirwood face was, mocking the king for that matter, because how many weirwoods do you see that are actually gleeful? Not very many. Usually them are really grim and scary for that matter.
Yeah.
So it was pretty significant that it was not just a regular werewood face, it was a smiling werewood face, or an open mouth of a werewood, for that matter, which was interpreted differently based on people who don't know anything of the Blackgate. And it just reinforces the fact that this was Northern inspired versus, improv. And so I think the defining moment was for Rhaegar finding out that this werewood face was actually being worn by a female, not necessarily a male. And that for him, really opened things up. I think that after he was married to Elia, he decided that he had to basically make a do with what he had. He was a married man. He had children with this woman, and his father chose his match and whatnot. And then, seeing that laughing werewood face was a revelation to him. Okay, the prophecy is still meant to be fulfilled by me. You know what I mean?
He's lucky, though. Rhaegar's lucky because if Mad King Aerys didn't say to Tywin, "Hey, I'm not going to marry my son to my servant's daughter," he could have married that crazy broad.
That's true. And then I wonder if Cersei would have still been, as nasty as she is, though.
Maybe in a different form, but she still would have been nasty to some degree or another. So
yeah.
That the face that's on this door, do you think that had something to do with the prophecy, or the Rhaegar read that book, which totally changed his life, made him want to become a fighter and learn how to be a fighter, right? So, do you think that symbol is also something he saw in the book, or that because we never see what he read, we don't know what he read.
No, they actually never talk about it, but this is what I find interesting. I think that from the very beginning of Rhaegar's life, he was raised to believe that he was supposed to be the fulfillment of the prophecy. They all thought that Rhaegar was the prince that was promised. He was born in the tragedy of Summerhall, with all the smoke that, from the fire and the tears that were shed based on, the lives that were lost. And so they truly believe that Rhaegar was the fulfillment of the prophecy of the prince that was promised, until later on Rhaegar came to believe that it was different, that it was his son who was the fulfillment of the prince that was promised. So I don't think that it was like one day Rhaegar sitting in the library and he's reading a scroll that convinces him that he's the prince that was promised. I think that one day he's sitting in the library after being told his whole entire life that he is the prince that was promised, and he finds something that's shocking to him for the most part. You know what I mean? And he realized in order to fulfill this prophecy, he needed to become somebody who was a warrior, somebody who was strong, who could fight, and defend the people. And that changed Rhaegar from being the bookish person that was similar to his uncle Aemon, to Rhaegar, the Prince of Dragonstone, who, won the tournament of Harrenhal against crazy odds, because Sir Barristan Selmy was one of the finest swords in all of Westeros, as was Sir Arthur Dayne, and Rhaegar was never even put in comparison to those two. So I think it's pretty obvious that this scroll was a defining moment for Rhaegar, outside of him believing that he was the prince that was promised. I think it changed things for him slightly differently. Okay,
that makes sense. Now, after the tourney of Harrenhal, what happens next? What happens between Rhaegar and Lyanna? I mean, they're not like skipping down the trail holding hands. There had to be some kind of secret affair, right? I mean, they fell in love. When did they have time to procreate? How did all that happen?
I don't think that there was like this long time in between the time that the tournament of Harrenhal lasted and when Rhaegar finally met up with Lyanna 10 leagues from Harrenhal. In fact, it says that this fall spring only lasted 2 moon's turns, which is about 2 months. George R. R. Martin confirmed that Westeros has the same planetary cycle as Earth. So 12 turns of the moon, and so 12 months. Now, we know that their seasons are slightly different because they have winter that never ends and summers that last for generations. But all in all, there's still 12 turns of the moon. So 12 months in a year, basically. And they don't have like these exceptionally like long years. Like a year isn't like 3 of our own Earth years. You know what I mean? It's a good 12 months. So 2 turns of the moon, the fall spring lasted, and then it came back with a vengeance. By the new year, 282 AC, it came back in full force, and the Blackwater had completely frozen over. So assuming that the year of the fall spring was a true spring, and Elia gave birth to her child around or on the new year, 282 AC, we can assume that the Tournament of Harrenhal was held in March, April, or May of 281 AC. So from, let's say, May all the way until December, that's 7 months? 7 months.
Yeah,
so you have 7 months. So there's 7 months in between when Lyanna and Rhaegar had seen each other. Elia was pregnant. They were all on Dragonstone except for come the new year, Rhaegar was gone. He wasn't on Dragonstone. The Blackwater was completely frozen over, and he couldn't be found in Dragonstone with Elia and his new baby. He wasn't in King's Landing to see the wildfire burning on the battlements. He was already on the King's Road with 6 companions, heading to the Riverlands, where he found Lyanna Stark 10 leagues from Harrenhal. And 10 leagues from Harrenhal, as we said last week, is the Island of Faces. Exact distance. And that's how far Howland Reed came. If you can look it up. 10 leagues is the Island of Faces, or the God's Eye, for that matter. So it was really convenient. We know that Lyanna was actually in the Riverlands already because of Brandon and Kat's marriage. She was supposed to be there to attend, and she wasn't there when Brandon got there, and he was informed that Lyanna had taken off or was kidnapped by Rhaegar, which is really interesting to me that anybody would know that Rhaegar kidnapped her, considering they caught up with each other on the God's Eye. So there was only about 7 months, 7, 8, 7, 6, something like that, months in between the time that Rhaegar and Lyanna had last seen each other. So it wasn't like there was this like ridiculously long time in between. And so then you have him on the new year 282 riding out to find Lyanna, and it takes about 2 weeks to go from King's Landing to the God's Eye, based on Westerosi travel times and means of travel. So let's say mid-January, Rhaegar and Lyanna caught up. Mid-January, end of January-ish. So she had from like the end of January of 282 AC all the way until Ned found her at the end of 283 AC.
So when we say I believe that she was not kidnapped. Some people believe that she was kidnapped and then she fell in love with her captor. Some people have even said that the whole rape thing, and I don't think so at all. I think like we've talked about that they met up, they were in love. One thing led to another. They ran away together. Off they go, and then bound chicka wow wow happens, and we know what happens next, right? The good old birth of Jon Snow.
Yeah, and possibly 2 others.
Okay, so you think that there's possibly 2 other children?
Well, Daenerys is a child of 3, and if she was Rhaegar and if she was Rhaella's and Aerys' child, she'd be a child of 8. There's just no way in hell that she could be Elia and Aerys, not Elia. Why do I keep saying that? Aerys and Rhaella's child, because if she was, she'd be a child of 8, not a child of 3. So that means she has to be a true child of 3. There has to be 3 children in the same line. And if she was Elia and Rhaegar's, yeah, totally, she could be a child of 3, but Elia and Rhaegar only had 2 children. So therefore, she had to have came from a line where there was a total of 3. And the dragon has 3 heads no, I don't think that they were triplets. The dragon has 3 heads is representative of Aegon, Visenya, and Rhaenys. So he's looking to recreate the 3-headed dragon, which isn't necessarily something that they brought with them from Valyria. It's something that they created when they conquered Westeros. So it would make more sense that there was 3 and not just 1.
There's a rumor that oh my God, what is her name? She's traveling with Bran right now. Mira Reed is possibly Jon Snow's sister.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be very interesting. That could be pretty interesting indeed. Do you subscribe to that theory? Do you think that there's some evidence to that?
I am open to that theory. I'm tossing it back and forth. It's possible that either Val is Jon's twin or Mira is Jon's twin. And Daenerys is the 3rd born child. She's the youngest. And Armani, just to come back to you really fast, you said you can't see Rhaegar as Dany's father, which is interesting to me, considering that Daenerys has a stronger tie to Rhaegar than she does to Aerys, Rhaella, or Viserys, for that matter. In her dreams, she even sees herself as him. She has a connection to a brother that she's never known. She knows about his silver harp and how he used to sing. And even Jorah was taken aback by her when she says, "Well, I saw his harp," and he was like, "He did have a harp. You knew that?" I mean, there's too many things. Also, the House of the Undying's book-wise, Mother of Dragons, Daughter of Death, and that's only said to her after she sees a vision of Rhaegar dying on the Trident. It wasn't Aerys that was shown to her being killed in the throne room. It was Rhaegar being killed on the Trident, and then she's Mother of Dragons, Daughter of Death. And if she is by chance Rhaegar's daughter, Rhaegar dying on the Trident, Lyanna dying from complications in childbirth, she would still technically be the Daughter of Death. Aerys didn't get the opportunity to murder anybody because Jaime killed him.
Yeah,
so
yeah, and real quick, we're talking about the book right now. We're not even considering the show in terms of what we're talking about right now. And, these are our theories. Some things that we've been kicking around that could be possibilities. And, even if they're not, they're still so much fun to talk about because it would kind of throw things for a loop. Something just flew past me in here. Jesus.
That's exciting.
I'm being attacked in the studio by creatures.
Yeah, that means
by Grumpkins.
A lot of people say that they think that Daenerys could possibly be Ashara's and Ned's. I don't agree. I don't subscribe to that theory either because, again, she'd have to be a child of 3, and there would be no way that Ashara had 3 children. I don't even
think that they made Flippity Flop, quite honestly.
I think that Ned is the one who, quote unquote, dishonored Ashara at the tournament of Harrenhal.
You think
I don't
so?
think he dishonored her in a way that would suggest that she wasn't willing. I totally think they got it on. I think that he was head over heels in love with her, and he wanted her to be his wife. And I think that she loved him too. And
I didn't think Ned was there. Was he? I didn't realize he was at Harrenhal. I know Robert was there.
Robert, Brandon, Ned, and Benjen and Lyanna were all there.
Oh, the whole family, pretty much.
So there's a line that says that Ashara danced with a griffin, with basically Oberyn Martell. She danced with John Connington, a white sword who I assume is Arthur Dane, and she danced with the Wild Wolf, with the Quiet Wolf, but only after his brother, the Wild Wolf, had asked her to dance with him because he was too shy to ask for himself.
Ned was a little bitch, huh?
Ned was in love, and he had never been exposed to anybody that, he wasn't out there like Ned was Sharks Alaria. I don't know about all that. Possibly. I don't think so. But I think that it's possible that either Val or Mira are Jon's twin. One of them are Jon's twin. I'm just having a hard time with the Val thing because of the fact that, I guess I'm not really having that big of an issue, but I don't know. That's a whole nother theory.
Right. So what points still need to touch on before we could end the Rhaegar and Lyanna Part 2 episode?
Well, I think that we pretty much have brushed up on everything. Long story short, Rhaegar and Lyanna met at Harrenhal after being influenced by Howland Reed, who was influenced by the Three-Eyed Raven on the Island of Faces. And he set it all up so that he could be attacked by 3 squires. In the Night of the Laughing Tree story that Mira tells Bran, Howland had actually waited to pass through the twins under the cover of darkness so that he wouldn't be attacked by the Freys, only to arrive at the shores of Harrenhal in broad daylight and be set upon by 3 squires, one of which was related to House Frey. He knew that he was going to be attacked by them had they seen him, and he chose to go anyway. But he was bolder than most, so he didn't balk from the challenge. And he marked their faces so they could be avenged upon later. So he could be avenged upon later. But he didn't intend on doing it himself because he can't participate in the joust. However, he could have went to the knights that they were sworn to, and requested that they punish their squires, but he didn't. And then the next day, or 2 days in, a day and a half in, we have the Knight in the Laughing Tree, show up to, basically avenge Howland Reed and the fact that he had been disrespected by these squires. And rather than ask for money, which he totally could have done, he only wanted them to be disciplined and to be taught honor. And that is something that's completely a northern trait. It just reeks of northern influence, and so it's on harassment. Wait, I don't think he necessarily set his own harassment up, Armani. The question was, so Howland set his own harassment up. I don't necessarily think that he set his own harassment up. I think that what happened is that this is all part of a plan. There's been northern influence going on in Westeros for thousands and thousands of years, ever since the first Long Night with the Children of the Forest and the White Walkers and everything else. There's been serious influence based on the Three-Eyed Crow and whoever the first Three-Eyed Crow was, and this, and going back and back and back into history. And now we have a situation where you have a Crannogman who can, build castles and turn water into earth and earth into water, and all of these great talents, go and spend a whole entire season on the Island of Faces because he felt like he had to. There was definitely northern influence, and the whole entire season he spent wasn't on just some random remote place. He was on an island that was surrounded by weirwood trees that were tapped directly into the north. You know what I mean? And for him to arrive on shore at Harrenhal, I think that he knew what was going to happen, and he didn't back away from it. It was all part of the plan. He needed Lyanna to come to his rescue. He needed to know that she was as fierce as they believed her to be, so that he could present her to the prince, who would in turn, fight for her in the traditions of the First Men, so that he could win her and then steal her, which is interesting that they call it kidnapping. He stole her away, like the First Men do with their spear wives, to win her and prove that he was a worthy consort of her.
Well, even if Howland Reed didn't know, like, he still had to be there. He was led there for a reason. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of times when prophecy happens, or when fate intervenes and steers you in one direction or the other, you don't necessarily know where you're going to go, but you're led there either through signs or a feeling, or somebody says, "Hey, you need to go over there, pal," or here's your choice: eat the red pill or the blue pill, or it's one way or the other.
Exactly. And just to kind of prove my point about, northern influence, Harrenhal is a testament to that. Harrenhal was built by Harren Hoare, who had no affiliation whatsoever with the old gods, but he cut up every single weirwood tree he could find in that area and had the weirwood trees built into Harrenhal, the foundation of Harrenhal itself, and in the rafters and everything else, the support beams. And then a man who had no affiliation with the old gods whatsoever plants his own godswood, and he ends up finishing Harrenhal. I think it was the day that Aegon the Conqueror arrived in Westeros in order to conquer. And then instead of Aegon choosing Harrenhal as his seat, which is supposed to be the greatest castle in all of Westeros, he chose to build the Aegon fort in King's Landing rather than take Harrenhal as his seat. And so they've been trying to unite the dragon and the wolf since all the way from Conquest, and they haven't done it yet. So, I mean, Harrenhal is a huge part of this whole entire story, so it had to happen at Harrenhal. There's influence. There's literally, he was being driven for whatever reason to build this monument to the old gods, but he left the Island of Faces completely untouched, where he was digging up every other freaking weirwood tree he could find. He left. It's not cursed. It's not cursed. It's meant for one specific family, the dragon and the wolf. It would not surprise me whatsoever. There's a lot of theories that Sansa may end up marrying fake Aegon, and they may end up taking Harrenhal as their seat, or that that may be where the great battle ends up being fought, is right there at Harrenhal on the God's Eye. Daenerys has a lot of visions of fighting, of the dead coming at her. No, Cregan was not supposed to marry a royal princess. Of the dead coming at her, and she's Rhaegar, and she's on her dragon, and she's getting ready to fight the dead on the God's Eye. Everything happens is centered to the God's Eye. So I mean, there's a lot of influence going on with the North, with the old gods and whatnot, and the fact that Howland Reed spent a season there is enough to support the fact that Howland Reed was influencing the events at the tournament of Harrenhal.
Lord Bag says, Helen set events in motion. Without his action, the war with the others would already be lost before it began.
True that, bro.
There's a lot of amazing things that happens in George's world, and it's a lot of fun trying to pull it apart and figure out what makes sense and what doesn't. And for me, when I listen to the books, I don't find all the details like you and some of our other Thronies do. So a lot of times I revert back to the show. But speaking of the books, if you love what you're listening to and you love podcasting and you want to help support us here at the Total Nerd Takeover Studios, there's a great way you can help us keep the podcasts going and, of course, all of our video work that we do. Now, in the description of this video and also in the live feed, I'm going to share with you some really cool links that'll help support us. You can buy something from Amazon. I'll have an Amazon link there. You click on it, you buy anything, we'll get a small cut. There's no extra cost to you, and you'll support us here at the studio. Or, because you like podcasts, maybe you'll like to listen to Audible. If you haven't tried Audible, give Audible a try. We're giving you a code that has 2 credits in it. Each one is good for a book, so you can get 2 books to try out. I'm going to play a little bit of George R. R. Martin's A Feast for Crows, read by Roy Dotrice, to give you an idea how awesome this can sound in your iPhone or other smartphone or whatever device you're using running Audible. And you can get 2 free books using our link and supporting us here at the studio so we can continue to make great content. Here we go. Here's a little bit of a taste.
Later, when Balon's sons were born, he had grown to accept that one day he would kneel to them as well, when one of them took his father's place upon the sea stone chair. But the drowned god had summoned Balon and his sons down to his watery halls, and Victarion could not call Euron king without tasting bile in his throat. The wind was freshening, and his thirst was raging. After a battle, he always wanted wine. He gave the deck to Newt and went below. In his cramped cabin aft, he found the dusky woman wet and ready.
Yeah, she was wet and ready. She wanted to be ridden hard and put away wet. So that's a little bit of a taste of something you could experience by using one of our links. And there's no obligation. You get the books for free. If you don't want to stick with it, that's okay too. But you can definitely help us here at Total Nerd Takeover Studios, bringing you content like Behind the Iron Throne podcast. So there's that. I am a huge believer in the Rhaegar/Lyanna love story. I think that Howland Reed had to be there for a reason. I think that he was influenced by the Three-Eyed Raven, or Three-Eyed, whatever he's called, Three-Eyed Raven. I think that it was all a matter of prophecies coming together, fate working, and it's leading us to a direction. George is trying to lead us through this adventure to a pivotal point. Now, I think that in the HBO series Harrenhal's Cursed, I don't think so. I think it's, well, people call it Cursed in the books, but I like what you're saying here, that it's a place of importance, that the dragon and the wolf are supposed to be there. So maybe, like you said, maybe that's where we're going to have this big standoff between the others, with Dany and Jon meet up together and maybe fight against the others. But there's more here that meets the eye. And I'm hoping that in the next book, maybe we'll get some more information about that. And of course, also in the next season. So I don't believe that there was any rape. I don't believe that Lyanna was taken against her will. She willingly went. She ran off with Rhaegar. They did their thing. They made their children or child or however, whatever theory you just subscribe to. And I think it's kind of beautiful, actually. And it's a shame that the people in the story don't see it that way. Although I suspect Peter Baelish may.
I think it's I might want to make sure that can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think that I think it's pretty self-evident. I mean, we're learning more and more and more about Lyanna and Rhaegar as the stories go more in depth. We learned in A Dance with Dragons that Rhaegar loved his lady Lyanna, and the realm bled for it. But that was one of the first times that we actually had confirmation from a character outside of flashbacks that Rhaegar actually did love Lyanna. We didn't even get that information in book 1. In Daenerys' rendition of what Viserys had told her about her life, where they came from, or their brother, only that he was a great warrior, and Rhaegar wasn't a great warrior. You know what I mean? He didn't fight in 100 battles, and he didn't win 1,000 of them. He literally, fought in one battle and he died, and he won a tournament. But we don't have any history of Rhaegar winning any other great battles. He didn't even save his father from Duskendale. So we but for some reason, Viserys has this like grandiose idea of who his brother was, and he tells Daenerys all of these things, but he doesn't tell Daenerys that Rhaegar loved Lyanna and he stole her away, and that's the reason why Eddard Stark and Robert Baratheon murdered their father and took their throne. Because for some reason, Daenerys still believes that all of them were unjustly kicked out of their own home. You know what I mean? She has no idea until she gets introduced to Arstan Whitebeard, who is Barristan Selmy, or to Jorah Mormont, that things aren't exactly how she thought that they were. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't even know where I was going with this.
Armani, he was definitely a bookworm. He was not the amazing warrior that he was portrayed. He was probably an okay swordsman. You know, he trained after he read the prophecies and stuff, but he was definitely, there was no way in the Seven Gods Green Earth that he was going to beat Robert Baratheon, that's for sure. To quote the priest from A Princess Bride, this is from Lord Baggs, "Wov, twoo wov." That's awesome. You guys know that Guardians of the Galaxy is opened. It's in the movie theaters right now. I should be there watching it. But I'm here.
You're right. He wasn't.
With my awesome thronies.
Armani says he was no Dragon Knight, and you're right. He wasn't Aemon the Dragon Knight. He's nowhere like it, which is interesting. This is the reason why, you know, went and did a lot of research on Jon in the first place, was because I thought that Jon would be named after Aemon the Dragon Knight, and blew my mind to find out that I was going in the wrong direction. Lilith says Mira's mom was Jon's wet nurse. I don't believe that she's his twin. Jojen is younger, and to be able to nurse the baby you are expecting needs to be born. She said, I hope that she's explaining herself. I don't think that Mira's mother is Jon's wet nurse. I don't see how that's relevant at all. Mira was born the same year that Jon was born. And there's no information to support who her mother is, only that Howland Reed is her father. We know that Jon, Mira, and Robb are the same age, and that Jon, by George's confirmation, is only 8 to 9 months older than Daenerys. Not a full 9 months guaranteed. He's only slightly older than Daenerys. So there's not even a full year in between Jon and Daenerys. But we don't have any information whatsoever on who Mira's mother is. And Howland had been with Ned for quite a while on campaign. So where in the world would Howland find time to go and meet up with a chick, have a baby, get it on, and then pick up his kid on the way home from the Tower of Joy? I don't believe that they were at the Tower of Joy, but pick up his own kid on the way home from Tower of Joy, and then bring her home, and then give her his last name, but no explanation of who her mom is. However, we do know that Jojen, he is married to Jojen's mother, and she's not tied to Mira. So I don't see it as working out as seamlessly as that, to be quite honest with you.
Mama Cheryl's here. Yay. Yay, that's awesome.
Hi, Mom.
And she's driving home listening. Awesome, that's awesome. Armani says, how would Mira have green eyes when Lyanna had gray eyes and Rhaegar has dark indigo?
Well, that's a good question, considering green goes really well with Dorne. It's quite possible that her mother is Dornish, and it's quite possible that Mira is actually Ned's daughter and not Jon's sister, which would open it up for Val. Go ahead.
I have an answer, too.
Men.
Here it goes. Here is my answer. Syrio Farrell is dead, and he is not a vamp. No, that's not the answer. Okay, here's the answer. George R. R. Martin can make up whatever shit he wants. If he could write on there, Jon is half Targaryen, and he's half werewolf. And that's just the way it's going to be. So it all depends on what George writes. George is on the record as saying that he has a shit ton of plot holes. He's said this a couple of times, and it's just inevitable. I mean, he writes these huge books, and he has tons of notes. And he's only one guy, and he does get help, but still, there's a lot of stuff that could be missed. Nobody's perfect. There's just so many amazing things in this world, though. And
there's also a huge distinction, though, between how Crannogman look versus how Mira looks.
How does the average Crannogman look, anyway?
I'm about to tell you right now.
I imagine like a hunchback with like green icky skin because they like to play in the mud a lot, and they have a stink of bog, you know, like smelly bog, like the bog
Frog
of
eaters.
eternal stench. Yeah, frog
Frog
eater, and they
eaters.
eat frogs.
So
Frog
this is
legs.
what Mira tells Bran. The lad knew the magic of the Crannigs, but he wanted more. Our people seldom travel far from home. You know, we're a small folk. Our ways seem queer to some, so the big people do not always treat us kindly. But this lad was bolder than most, and one day he had grown to manhood and decided that he would leave the Crannigs and visit the Isle of Faces. No one visits the Isle of Faces, objected Bran. That's where the green men live. It was the green men he meant to find. So he donned a shirt sewn with bronze scales like mine, and took up a leathern shield and a three-pronged spear like mine, and padded a little skin boat down the Green Fork. Bran closed his eyes to try to see the man in his little skin boat, and in his head, the Crannogman looked like Jojen, only older and stronger, and dressed like Mira. So Mira doesn't look like a Crannogman at all. She just dresses like one. So there's a distinction there in relevance on how one looks versus the other. Mira is taller than Jojen is. She's not as small. She's a girl, so she sees herself as small, but she's not quite as small as Jojen is, and Jojen's her brother. And typically, boys are bigger than girls. And Mira doesn't look like a Crannogman, but she dresses like one. She does have features that would be considered Dornish, though. And that's really interesting because the Dornish men are technically first men, too. They also are people of their own, but the original people who settled in Dorne crossed the land bridge with the first men, and they settled there, and then eventually started moving north and north and north and north until they actually became to live in the north. And then Nymeria and her 10,000 ships descended into Dorne, and they conquered, and she took Nimeros Martell as her husband, and then that's how they became the people of the Rhone. But they still have firstman influence, and it goes all the way up to the Crannogmen, and they have Dornish influence as well. The thing about it is that it's the bronze, it's the tie to the bronze in almost every single thing they do. The Dornish people, they prefer to use spears versus swords. They would prefer to use bow and arrow versus, fighting in a melee. They'd rather choose range as their weapons to give them distance and speed. They don't fight like the people of Westeros in general. They're not, they're not armored knights. You know what I mean? They're not riding on horseback and, tournaments and whatnot. I mean, they're fierce competitors, but they use tricks, poisons like viper poison or frog poisons or poisons from the. There's so many things that kind of tie Dornish
like
people
the African
and
tree frog, very poisonous.
I love frogs in general. So.
Really, frogs? They're so
I
goofy
love
looking,
frogs.
and they
They're
look
perfect.
disgusting, and they're
horrible.
They're terrible.
I love them.
Frogs and turtles are just ugh.
Okay, well, turtles I can understand because they're a little scary. But when I lived in New England, because I live in California now, for those of you who didn't know, it doesn't rain very often here. When I lived in New England, my niece and I used to go out in the rain barefoot and just go searching for frogs. I mean, it would be like this hot summer day, tons of humidity, and it would be pouring down rain, and we'd be in the middle of the road walking around looking for frogs to try to move them off the road and into the grass so they didn't get ran over by cars. I mean, literally obsessed with frogs.
It's funny. I see. Lilith says I collect frogs. Lord Bag says they're delicious. Lilith says I used to have frogs as pets. I feel bad for you. And Armani says, are there any houses with frogs on their banners?
I would have to look at that really fast, but I'm pretty sure that we could find one if there is.
Yeah, if
Well,
anyone.
there's a turtle.
Yeah, turtle. This is why it's great having an actual live show because people can comment. And I just want to remind everybody that this Sunday we are still doing a live show at 7:30 Eastern Time right here at facebook.com/Behind the Iron Throne. And we're going to have KK and Tara on, who set up the Ice and Fire Con. They're going to be here with us. It's going to be a whole lot of fun.
I don't see any frogs.
Estermont. Armani is saying Estermont.
Eastermont.
Is it Easter or Esther? Easter?
Yes, it could be Estermont.
And maybe instead of an Easter bunny, they have a frog that poops out golden eggs. Wouldn't that be some shit?
That's a turtle, honey. It's not a frog.
Oh, I think he was mentioning a turtle when you mentioned earlier.
Oh.
Sorry. Who would want to have a frog as a banner? Well, I mean, there's some weird-ass banners. We should do a show about all the different banners. There's a ton of different things.
God, it would be really good actually to do a show about all that because it would be really informative and we could do like a Q&A.
I'm going to write it down. Banners. Yeah.
Banners.
All right. Any closing thoughts you want to finish up the show with?
No, just that Lyanna loved her Rhaegar and Rhaegar loved his Lyanna, and it wasn't a kidnapping as much as a stealing necessarily, and it could just be that Lyanna stole him and not he her, because she was fierce little thing. And yeah, I'm so excited for next season.
Do you think that George was a little bit vague when writing all this information about their love story? Like he could have put a little bit more into it, or do you think that the lack of information is what makes it really exciting? Is it gives us the ability to theory craft and use our imaginations?
I think that George gives us all of the answers that we need. I think that it's just written in a way that can be confusing to people who don't know what they're looking for. This happens all the time. He leads us in one direction while he gives us information that takes us in one direction while silently leading us in another. A perfect example of this is the fact that in book 2, we are introduced to Elia Martell and Rhaegar Targaryen in the tower, in whatever tower they were, and he's naming his son Aegon. We assume that because Daenerys describes this as his wife, that it's Elia and not Lyanna, because as far as we know as readers, we only know that Rhaegar was married to Elia and that he stole Lyanna. And at this point, we're not even expecting that Jon is Lyanna and Rhaegar's child. We're just expecting that Jon is Ned's bastard, and that's pretty straightforward. So he's misdirecting us. And I think it's important that we keep that in mind, because he's giving us answers for one thing, but while sending us looking in a different direction. It's all about interpretation. And unless you go back and you're actually looking at the facts, another one is that Daenerys never knew Dragonstone and can't remember, the flight to Braavos, but then remembers that she crossed the Narrow Sea 100 times on the way to Braavos. But how does she remember the way to Braavos, but she doesn't remember leaving Dragonstone? We have to question, the material that's being given to us, and we have to pay attention to all these things. And he's purposely giving us the answers while sending us looking in another direction, so that we don't catch on right away. And then when book 8 comes out and everything wraps up nice and tight in a little bow, we're all left looking like, what the fuck were we thinking? So yeah, he's misleading us on purpose.
All right, there you have it. So I want to thank everyone for joining our live stream. We love doing this. Remember, like I mentioned, 7:30 Eastern time this Sunday, we're going to have our wonderful guest host. So it's going to be an open show, so everyone come and ask whatever questions you want, and you can help lead the conversation. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you have any suggestions or comments that you would like to send us to make the show better, if you don't like the angle of my camera, whatever the case may be, whatever you would like to do, you can contact us on the Facebook page, facebook.com/Behind the Iron Throne, or you can send us some email. It's very simple to do, behindtheironthrone@gmail.com. You see the pattern that we have here. How about Twitter? Behind the Iron. Easy to do. And, of course, we have Instagram. Andrea, what's our Instagram right now?
Oh, gosh, you're going to make me actually do some work.
I think it's Behind the Iron as well, if I remember correctly.
I do believe it's behind the iron.
Yeah, so you're seeing a pattern here. Trying to make it nice and easy.
I don't know if you can actually see this because it's terrible as far as lighting goes, but
it's hard to see with the light. I love the phone.
I just posted one last night. Thank you. It's my little Apple iPhone 7 Plus.
Gold star for you.
Thank you. But yeah, it's actually been doing really well, the Instagram, and we're trying to stay current and post things that would be really interesting for everyone. But it's an Instagram, but it's a great way to stay in contact with us. And if you're on Instagram, give us a follow. And we are working on a website right now for everyone, possibly a blog for me to get out everything. We're all over the place on Facebook, tons of pages. If you're ever, in the mood to run something by us, or you have something that you're trying to work out and you want a little extra person an extra person to kind of give a helping hand, there's always somebody around. You can join us on our discussions and theories page, on our theories and speculations page, which, there's always a link to. I try to share back and forth between the main page and the discussion page. And then there's also pages all over Facebook, which is, I'm sure, where I found most of you awesome people. So make sure that you just look us up if you ever want to, run something by us, or you just have an idea and you aren't sure you're ready to share it. I'm always down to hear some more. I'm easily persuaded for the record. So you could probably convince me of almost anything.
Yeah, and
other than the fact that John is not Aegon, because I'm sure he is.
And we're really trying to promote community here. We're not just trying to have a show where we talk at you. We're trying to have you be a part of it as much as possible, where we can still have some type of good show format, So, getting on the Facebook makes it so easy to communicate with us. You pop in there, you ask a question, you make a post, as long as it's appropriate. You can message us on Facebook, and we do respond. Maybe not immediately, but we do respond as quickly as possible. And we also respond through the Gmail, and you'll also get a big shout-out on the podcast as well. We haven't been reading a lot of the iTunes feedback, because a lot of the iTunes feedback seems to be trolls sometimes, and I don't want to put any negativity on the show. We're trying to have some fun here. Here's a really great comment that really makes everything that we do here at the studio worth it. Lord Bag says, these types of shows are the best in being informative and entertaining. Honestly, this is the only Game of Thrones podcast he watches. Now that is fucking awesome. 5 gold stars to Bags. Lord Bags gets 5.
It's also the only online podcast that if we get 100 shares, our co-host will literally get trashed on screen for you. So yes, share away.
Share it. Yeah, we want to see Trin get hammered. She's really fun when you get her on a lot of whiskey.
Whiskey is her thing.
Yeah, she's good at it too.
She's really good at it. Expert.
Now tomorrow night, if all things in the universe work out, tomorrow night my CFO Trisha Woods and I are going to record a live podcast for Apple Time. If anyone listening has an Apple product and you're having some problems with it, or you need some help figuring out how to do something with your iPhone, iPad, iPod, Apple Watch, or Mac or MacBook, hell, anything that has an Apple logo on it, we will do our very best to help you on the show. It's really easy to get to, facebook.com/It's Apple Time Show. I'm sorry, Apple Time Show. And we do that show live. We're doing it live tomorrow night, as far as I know, unless something breaks, which does happen. But here at Total Nerd Takeover Studios, we have a lot of we used to do 5 podcasts, and we're going to try to bring some back as soon as we can. As soon as I get this house sold and we move into the next house, I'm hoping to have more room in the studio so I can do more stuff, because I'm excited to. I got so many plans. I got schemes and schemes and plans and schemes. I'm gonna give Peter Baelish a run for his money. Anyway, thank you so much for being here and being a part of the show every single week. We love you guys so much. We love doing the show. We love the Game of Thrones. God bless you and George R.R. Martin. Andrea, thank you so much for being on the show, and I can't wait to see you on Sunday.
Me too. I will be here with bells, or possibly just skin on.
Not looking like a lobster.
Hopefully I'll be a little more brown by then. You guys, I'm literally like cooked over here. My shoulder is disgusting. I don't even want to go into it with you. I probably have skin cancer. It's awesome.
Oh,
but they were
not.
seals, so I'm just being dramatic.
So we'll see everybody on Sunday at 7:30. Vala Mogulis.
Vala Doharis.
Peace.